I'd like you to think of someone special, someone very dear to you, a parent, a grandparent, or maybe your significant other. This person has been admitted to the intensive care unit. You, as the next of kin, arrive to the hospital and you receive this update. Your loved one is in critical condition. They are comatose and on life support, which is a ventilator that is breathing for them. They require multiple IV medications to keep their blood pressure up, and their liver and kidneys are shutting down. This is what we call multi-system organ failure. We're doing all we can to keep your loved one alive right now, but it is the machines and the medications that are keeping them alive. In the next few days, their kidneys will fail, requiring dialysis to remove toxins from their blood. If their heart stops, we will do CPR, but chances for a meaningful recovery are minimal. The healthcare team is recommending do not resuscitate in the event their heart stops. Even with a DNR, we will continue with the current treatment to keep your loved one alive. But even that may not be enough to bring your loved one back. We are asking you, what would your loved one want in this situation? And now it's up to you to speak on their behalf. So what do? I'm sure that was difficult for you to imagine, but this is a reality. Any one of you could be going through this situation with a parent, a grandparent, or maybe your best friend. Since many of you here are college age, I bet you haven't given this topic much thought. But these conversations happen daily in my ICU regarding patients of all ages. My name is Jennifer Steenburg, and I'm the nursing director for a large ICU in Houston, Texas. I've been watching families struggle with these types of decisions for over 25 years. One thing we know for sure is we are all going to die. I know some of you in here might think you're invincible, but you're not. Death is for certain. We don't know when, and we don't know how, but we know it's going to happen one day. I'm not here today to tell you how to live or die. I'm here to help you think about those decisions that are required at or near end of life. I was faced with this decision many years ago with my dog, although I hate to compare my dog to your loved one, but my dog was suffering. I asked the vet if it would be selfish of me to opt for euthanasia. The vet reassured me that it was indeed a selfless act to allow my dog a death with comfort. So I looked to my dog for some sign of agreement, but I received nothing. I felt so much guilt because I didn't know what my dog wanted. But I did know that I didn't want her to suffer anymore. So she was put to sleep, surrounded by her loved ones, finally free from her pain. Several years later, near the end of 2020, my dad fell and broke his hip. Already a 50% mortality risk, but it was complicated by his Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. He came through surgery and rehab with flying colors. He was so eager to get home. But when he got home, he stopped eating and he stopped improving. I recognized that the end was near, so I flew home to be with him. I'd always known my dad's wishes around end-of-life care because I'm an ICU nurse, and we've talked about it year after year. After a discussion with my family, we chose hospice. While I second-guessed that decision, I knew I was respecting his wishes, not mine. He made it through Christmas, and I spoke to him one last time on New Year's Eve, which was our tradition for many years. And he died January 4th of 2021. While it was emotionally painful for me to lose my dad, I was honored that I could advocate for him and make him comfortable in his own home with his wife beside him. He died a natural death with dignity, and he was no longer suffering with his pain. Think about how you'd want to live if you were facing death or debilitating disease such as a catastrophic stroke, massive heart attack, or terminal cancer. What machines are you okay with keeping you alive? Are you okay to live in a vegetative state, completely paralyzed, dependent on machines for the rest of your life? What about living in a nursing home, dependent on others for care for the rest of your life? We have ventilators to breathe for you, dialysis machines to pee for you, artificial nutrition to feed and water you, pacemakers and pumps to help keep your heart beating for you. We have tubes and drains for every orifice. Yes, every orifice. We can even create a new one if we need to. This can go on for weeks, months, and sometimes years. Even with all of these machines keeping you alive, we don't have a single machine to provide you quality of life. Families plead with us to do everything. But do you realize what everything entails? Numerous surgeries to repair infected bed sores, amputation of fingers, toes, limbs, damaged by decreased circulation, broken ribs from prolonged chest compressions. CPR isn't as glorified in real life as it is on TV. It's definitely not Grey's Anatomy. And the outcomes are not as good either. I understand that families are desperate to keep their loved ones alive, but is this life? I think we need to ask ourselves, what is most important to us? Quantity of life or quality of life? One family wanted to keep their dad alive until his 100th birthday, which was in 4 months. He was comatose and on life support, dialysis, and numerous IV medications. I realize that living to 100 is a great accomplishment, but at what cost? We have a middle-aged patient right now in our ICU. She had a cardiac arrest at a dialysis center. She's been comatose and on life support for 8 months now, still receiving dialysis and numerous IV antibiotics, suffering from the many complications of a prolonged hospital stay: bed sores, infections, immobility, unable to eat or even breathe on her own. Her daughter is her medical power of attorney. She knows her mom is suffering. She can't stand to see her in this state, but she's also afraid to make the decision to allow her mother a natural death. Her siblings even accused her of wanting to kill their mother, so she's afraid to make the decision that she knows is best. It seems like, although our patient did appoint a medical power of attorney, she didn't talk about her end-of-life wishes with her children. So she will die a medical death, surrounded by the healthcare team, in a hospital, attached to machines. Varani defines moral distress as the experience of knowing the right thing to do while being in a situation in which it's nearly impossible to do it. We knew the right thing to do, but our families didn't. If only families had a better understanding of their loved ones' wishes at or near end of life. In ICU, we can keep someone alive for a very long time, but are they truly living? I could share countless stories of the moral and ethical dilemmas we face every day because people did not talk about their end-of-life wishes. Death and dying is not uncommon in the ICU, but this past 2 years has been so different, thanks to the pandemic. Our patients were much younger, never expecting to be in the hospital, let alone the ICU and attached to machines, never having thought about what they wanted at the end of life. Their families remained hopeful and optimistic, while we, the healthcare team, felt like failures, helpless, watching our patients suffer, prolonging the inevitable, while those same family members struggled to make end-of-life decisions. They, too, didn't expect to be having to make end-of-life decisions at the age of 25 or 30 or 40. Family members will hold on to any sense of hope that they can, going as far as some miracle cure on the internet or the most recent TikTok trend. But I'm not here to debate ivermectin today. We now live in this information age where we place more trust in Dr. Google than we do the healthcare team. Doctors take an oath to do no harm. But is artificially prolonging life really doing no harm? Or are we just prolonging death? Some doctors believe that providing a good death is to do no harm. In addition to decisions and discussions around end-of-life care, there's also decisions to be made regarding post-life. We had a teenage male admitted to our trauma unit after being hit by a car while crossing the road. He was brain dead. LifeGift had to inform his family that their son was a registered organ donor. His family was devastated. They were so opposed to this decision that they hired a lawyer. But ultimately, the courts honored their son's wishes, and he donated his organs. Is anybody in here a registered organ donor? Do your parents know? Please tell them. Just this past February, 2 of my patients died and became organ donors. Their hearts, their livers, and their kidneys. 2 lives lost, but 7 lives saved. Fortunately, they were registered organ donors. They had already made their post-life wishes known in advance, saving their family members from having to make potentially difficult decisions in their time of loss. Texas population is over 29 million, but there are only 13.5 million registered organ donors. 47%. According to the Donate Life Texas website, there are over 10,000 people waiting for an organ in Texas, with over 100,000 people waiting nationwide. Every 10 minutes, another person is added to the national transplant waiting list. 144 people a day. While 20 people die each day because they didn't get a needed organ in time. We all have an expiration date. What a wonderful opportunity to make such a decision in life that can profoundly impact someone else in the event of your death. Yes, there are some myths around organ donation. Some believe if you're a registered donor, the hospital won't save you. Absolutely false. We are always going to try and save our patient first, and there are laws against anything different. Some believe organ donation is against their religion, but actually most major religions support organ donation. And then there are those that think they might be too old to donate their organs. Can anyone guess the oldest person to donate her organs? 94 years old. She gave her kidneys. And no, your family will not be charged for the organ donation procedure. When families are grieving, any decision-making can be difficult. We don't always think straight when going through something like this. I've watched families struggle with these decisions, whether it's religious or spiritual struggles, feelings of anger, fear, guilt, or just plain heartache. When a patient hasn't expressed his own wishes around end of life, it's left up to the family to make those decisions. And they're not easy decisions, but they are a bit easier when you know what your loved one's wishes are. Those conversations are best held early, before any serious illness or tragedy. Here are a couple things you can do in advance to minimize the burden put on your family. Prepare a medical power of attorney, which is an official form designating someone to make medical decisions on your behalf when you're no longer able. Prepare a living will or advance directives, which is another official form stating your end-of-life wishes in the event of a terminal or irreversible condition. When selecting a medical power of attorney, be sure to choose someone that will honor your wishes. My grandmother chose me because she knows my mom would rather keep her alive on machines forever than allow her to die a natural death. My grandmother is 92. She's ready today. It's important to speak your wishes with your family so that they are supportive and not surprised by your decisions when that time comes. And here's a couple questions you might want to ask the healthcare team if you or someone you love is admitted to the hospital in serious condition. What is the prognosis? What are the alternatives? I had a patient that came in needing to be on a ventilator for a long time. He required a tracheostomy, which is a hole in the neck attached to the vent. When he woke up after many weeks, he asked his family, "Why did you let them do this to me?" He didn't want any of this. Unfortunately, he hadn't expressed his wishes with his family, nor done a living will. His family regrettably replied, "We didn't know there was any other options, Dad." So be sure you ask what the alternatives are. Take those burdensome decisions off of your loved ones and let them love you the way you want to be loved. Think about your own end-of-life wishes and then speak those wishes to those closest to you. And ask your parents and those closest to you what their end-of-life wishes are, and write it down. How many in here even knew what advance directives were before today? Death does not discriminate nor is it age-dependent, as you've heard in the stories I've shared. We need to do better with end-of-life care. You may or may not know that the American healthcare system is broken. We spend billions of dollars every year, actually $875 billion last year, with much of it spent artificially prolonging life rather than promoting good death. Just because we can keep someone alive doesn't mean they would want that. Now, that person that you were thinking of in the beginning scenario, go to them and start that conversation, because you never know when that time is going to come. It might go like this: Mom, Dad, I was thinking about how Grandma died, and it made me realize that's not how I want to die. Or, remember how Pa died? Was that a good death or a bad death? Because I want a good death, a natural death. Now I know you all just want to get out there and live your life, but I hope you'll pause to think about how you want to live the end of your life as well. Thank you.